We make mistakes. We're only human, right? That's our confession. We make mistakes. We're only human. It reminds us that we're not perfect. Sometimes it reminds others that we're not perfect. Sometimes it becomes less of a confession and more of an excuse. So often we talk about humanness, and maybe when we say we, maybe it's those pastor types, inevitably turning to our weaknesses, our sinfulness, our violent tendencies, our selfishness. What else? The ways we fall short and mess up and lash out or hide away from what we don't know, because we're only human, right? Success is celebrated by climbing over others, stepping on someone to get to the newest item in the store, cutting somebody off to go a little bit faster. Strength and power is displayed and used at the expense of others. We're only human. And many of these questions and characteristics are projected onto our disciples. Jesus' very own followers, those bumbling idiots in the wilderness with him, continually missing what it is about this movement and the teachings that he's saying. How many times are they rebuking something or someone only to be overruled by Jesus? People bring the little children to Jesus, and they rebuke them, and Jesus says, "No, let them come forward." A blind man crying out for mercy, and they try to cut him off, quiet him. Today, Peter rebukes Jesus himself. To rebuke, it carries a power with it. To rebuke somebody or something, you're exerting your power over them. It's a very human thing that we do. But it's something that Jesus does as well to evil forces. And it's what he does to the disciples. It's just not something that we should be doing to Jesus or the beggars or the children. But we're only human. And then there's Jesus, the Son of Man, the Messiah. And I found this great interpretation from the Common English Bible. Here's the opening from our gospel text. Then Jesus began to teach his disciples. The human one must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and chief priests and the legal experts and be killed and rise again from the dead. The human one. We're only human. But Jesus was the human one. I love it. Jesus, the human one. And he reveals the journey that lies ahead. Suffering, rejection, death. But in case you missed it, rise again after 3 days. Peter's response to Jesus' description of what lies ahead, I feel like he's missing that last part because he hears the suffering and the death, and you say, wait a minute. It's not surprising. We do that ourselves. Wouldn't that be your initial reaction when someone you loved, you want to try to protect them, avoid the tragedy ahead, tempt them to turn back? Jesus rebukes those temptations to be selfish, to abuse his own authority, to demonstrate power over others. The human one, the Messiah, Jesus, recognizes the fear that lies inside of himself, the pain of the road ahead, but turns his strengths to serve others rather than himself. As Jesus reveals his path, he calls the disciples as well as the crowds around them to take up their crosses and follow me, he says. What does this cross carrying look like? Deny yourself. Lose yourself to save your life. But this life that Jesus is calling us into is not about self-hating or self-esteem. It's not about self-fulfillment. It's not even about self-emptying. It's about changing our orientation so that our life is not focused on self at all. Taking up our cross goes beyond even the relationship between ourselves and God, but with the whole world. Contrasting that image of people clamoring over each other to get to the top, there are these beautiful carvings that come out of Tanzania, Ushama, or these family tree carvings, or tree of life. These conical carvings of people, unstacked one person on another. They're not stepping on each other, but they're supporting each other. It's a sign of unity, of community. Each person doing tasks, farming, cooking, mothers, fathers, children, holding each other up, supporting each other in unity. These pieces can range from a couple inches to over 6 feet tall. The power of unity put on full display. The weight of that person standing on our shoulders. The people whose shoulders we stand on. The crosses we lift up are the weight of our neighbors, a community. These tools of humiliating capital punishment shine a merciful love back at a fearful world. These crosses that we carry bear hope that shines on future possibilities and present realities. These crosses take up and transform our perspective, set our minds on divine things rather than meaning of human things. In speaking to a room of peers at her graduation ceremony for a theology degree, Kelly Renee Gissendanner said this: "I challenge you to step up the next level of your character, growth and development. In all of us there are untapped abilities. I encourage you to write the book, start that ministry, teach, study, pursue your dream." She reminded them that suffering can be redeemed. There's only one who can bring a clean thing out of something unclean. Turn a tragedy into triumph, a loser into a winner. When this miracle occurs, and only through divine grace, our life is not wasted. When blind eyes are opened, when we all see this greater purpose, let us put off hatred and envy and put on love and compassion every day. At her clemency hearing in front of the Georgia State Board of Pardons and Paroles a few days ago, one of her professors spoke on Kelly's behalf. Rather than succumbing to bitterness, despair, or a sense of victimization, Kelly has become a compassionate, reflective, spiritual, and authentic human being. She's committed to living a life to the fullest and to being a blessing in whatever way she can be to others in the world. Tomorrow, she's going to become the first woman in 70 years in Georgia to be executed. In the face of death, she kept learning. She reached out to other women who had attempted suicides or harmed themselves, found other ways in which she could comfort them. She made mistakes, received the harshest possible sentence, picked up her cross, and followed Jesus, even as the people with power over her showed her no mercy. She has already found mercy through the human one. Jesus taught the disciples what the Son of Man, the human one, would endure: suffering, rejection, death. And then a rebuke of that suffering, the fear, a rebuke of that rejection and death that this world wallows in through his resurrection. We're only human. We're not perfect. Jesus only asks us to take up the cross and follow. We see, but we wait to see more clearly. We believe, but we need that help for our unbelief. We follow, but our attitudes are often not centered on those divine things, but still centered on ourselves and human things. Henry Nouwen spoke that I have found it very important in my own life to try and let go of my wishes and instead to live in hope. I'm finding that when I let go of my sometimes petty and superficial wishes and trust that my life is precious and meaningful in the eyes of God, that something really meaningful, something beyond my own expectations begins to happen to me. During our Today services on our Wednesday night offerings, we sit gathered together in silence, in song, in prayer, to settle our minds, to wait attentively for God to come break into our hearts. That quietness of our souls allows us to stop hiding from God, allowing healing, transformation through the light of Christ. This cross holds all the prayers of those in the room. The moment we stand up, each lighting a prayer, bound together in the cross. We are only human, but we're not alone in our carrying of our crosses. We hold each other up on this journey. And we follow the one who truly shows us what it means to live as humans. Amen.